How can you overcome your fears and get the most out of life? I'm Marco Perry. Welcome to the Perry Platform. Studies show us that the human brain can overcome worries and fears by recalling past experiences. A new report this week suggests that people with OCD have difficulties with this process not because they are inflexible, but because of difficulty trusting acquired experience. This brings to mind a popular saying: doing the same thing over and over again while expecting different results is a sign of madness. This is what happens to you, regardless of whether or not you have OCD, if you get caught in the hamster wheel of fear. On one hand, you want to overcome it, but on the other, you remain in a constant state of paralysis, believing that something will change, but you refuse to initiate it. You stay shell-shocked and do nothing, hoping for a different solution to manifest. Now, although the study identifies a difficulty of trusting acquired experience among those with OCD, I'd wager this is common among regular people as well. Maybe even you and me if we look a little bit deeper. I find this research to be interesting, but I'm more intrigued by the lessons we can extract from it, like what is fear and how can we overcome it? That's going to be the focus of our conversation today. So let's start at the very top. What is fear? In some sense, really, it's just your struggle with the unknown, with uncertainty, with chaos. Fear is the force that balances that relationship. And there's good reason why fear comes into the picture. Historically, if you didn't know what something had in store for you, in the past, that would mean you are on the path to death. If you didn't know where the predator was, if you didn't know where they were hiding, if you didn't know what this food would do to you once ingested, those are all terrible things that have been honed into you via thousands of years of evolution. Quite literally, not knowing something is dangerous to you. And you shouldn't be confused either. It's not the thing per se that makes you afraid. It's the possibilities there. It's what lies in the chaos and the shroud of the unknown. If you take a snake, for example, you're afraid of getting bitten by it. You're afraid of the consequences of what might be if you encounter the animal. You can almost make that argument with something like dying. That's an extreme, but are you really afraid of dying? Or are you afraid of what comes after that? The unknown. You're not really afraid of investing in the stock market. You're afraid of what could happen. You're afraid of losing your money. The thing itself is the thing. It's the object of your perception. The consequences and the unknown, the mystery, that's what gets you. Now, although in today's day and age, we're not afraid of tigers pouncing out of the bushes and killing us, but there are many things that still leave us feeling unsure. There are many causes of uncertainty, and that leads to greater fears, such as something as simple as what's going to happen to me after I graduate? Am I going to get that promotion that I need? Can I sustain my family? Is someone going to reciprocate the feelings that I'm showing to them? These questions are things that we encounter on a daily basis. We actually live in a constant state of fear. And the logical question that follows that is, how can we function if we're encountering all of these unknowns and variables on a consistent basis? How are we able to cope with the fear? It may not be our lives on the line every single time, but there are still things there that matter to us that we aren't willing to lose, such as reputation, or being vulnerable, getting hurt, putting things that we care about in danger. All of these things are valid concerns, and you'd be quite the rare specimen to now relate to this daily ordeal. So, how do we avoid being constantly paralyzed by fear? The unknown surrounds us each and every second. Fear is a byproduct of that. But we notice that people are going about their daily lives and taking on that task. The answer is that we just live. We experience things. Then we project from the past onto the future. That is what the studies show. This system here is essential to human progression, and it's easily visible through numerous examples. The first one that comes to mind really is riding a plane for the first time. That can be quite scary. We're doing something that humans aren't meant to do given our biological trajectory. We are flying. We're moving at insane speeds, and yeah, if something were to happen, presumably there's a high possibility of you dying. So yeah, that first plane ride is going to be a little bit nerve-wracking, but after you conquer that, the second time, you take it a little bit easier. And the third time, and the fourth time, and eventually, it feels like walking. There is no fear in it anymore. It's because we're able to base our future expectations on things that we've encountered in the past already. You can describe this phenomenon as learning. Picking a random berry from a bush, that's nerve-wracking at first because you don't know what's going to do to you. But if you eat it and you're fine, you become nourished after. You know the next time you go there, presumably, you're going to encounter a similar result. If you build a house somewhere and you are not attacked by predators at night, presumably, you know it's a decent location. And if you are attacked, well, you know now to relocate and move to a safer spot. In some corny sense of the imagination, you become a fortune teller. You make high quality predictions based on evidence that you've encountered in the past, and by no means is it perfect, but it's good enough. It's good enough for yourself, for your mind and your psyche. It convinces you that you're going to be okay, and you're able to go on in your daily lives operating as normal. Now, you may be sitting there and wondering, what good is projecting onto the future when I have nothing to project with? When the very notion of gathering that level of experience and an opportunity to learn is so frightening that I'd rather not even go about doing it in the first place. That's a valid concern. The experience gathering process is by no means easy. And by any stretch of the imagination, we can't say that it's not going to come with some form of harm. To me, this is one of the beauties of the human spirit. Even though we come face to face with potential disasters every maybe even hour, minute, second of your life, depending on your circumstance, we're still able to get up and come face to face with that challenge and grasp it. Maybe even at a subconscious level, but we relegate those fears to the back of our mind. And we understand that there is something worth pursuing that makes the fear not appropriate. You understand that there is a greater aim here, and putting that level of sacrifice on the line is worth it. The easy way out is for you to stay home. Stay in your bed. Pull the covers over your head. That's safe. But at the same time, there's no progress that comes with that. We have a desire to move forward. Of course, every now and again, there's going to be that odd challenge that is so frightening that you don't know what to do. How do you handle that? How do you derive the knowledge and the experience from a situation like that so you can move forward? Something may be completely new to you. How do you avoid getting paralyzed by that? Something might be so ambiguous that you fear for every possibility there. In the world of chaos, anything can happen. Any type of possibility can materialize, and it may be one that you don't like. How do you avoid getting paralyzed by that? The answer is one thing: courage. That is the mechanism that you rely on first before you can even build experience. As a matter of fact, it's the prerequisite for experience, for learning. You have to be courageous first. This is not some grand ask to be demanding of you. You've already demonstrated great courage on a regular, consistent basis. By simply getting out of bed and entering the world of possibility, you've demonstrated courage. By saying something to somebody, that's courageous. By getting in a vehicle, these things are courageous. Now, obviously, it might not be to the same magnitude as doing something heroic, but there's still traces of courage within you. You have displayed it. It's only a matter of channeling it to greater levels now. This is one of the common stories of just human progression. Facing something that's so scary to you, something that rattles you to your core, and you meet it with a strong will to overcome it, to survive, to thrive, and to advance. That's the fundamental story of human existence. Without courage, life would not be as prosperous as it is today. You could also probably make the argument that it wouldn't be worth living. Without courage, you would entirely stick to the status quo. You wouldn't be able to be yourself. You wouldn't be able to fully enjoy the adventure of life. You wouldn't be able to take any risk. You wouldn't be able to gain anything. It would just be the same beat. A, B, A, B, A, B, day in and day out. That has no way to go about operating. Luckily, there isn't a single human being alive who has not displayed some form of courage. Even if it's small, that's still moving towards the right path for yourself, for development, for improving not only you, but the world around you. Now, let's be realistic for a second. Let's say you decide, yeah, he has a point. I'm going to be courageous now. I'm going to tackle the demons that have been gripping me for the past month, week, year, day, whatever. And I'm going to confront it face to face. Am I promising you that you're going to succeed at first? The answer is no. Courage is one thing, but the reality is things can turn out badly for you. It's possible. Things can go terribly wrong. You can be left at the bottom of the well. You can be left bereft of hope. How do you not let that paralyze you from trying again once you've already demonstrated the act of courage the first time? The initial thing that you need to ask yourself after you're facing a scenario like that, where you've been completely obliterated, is, are you still alive? If you are already off to a good start. The potential is there for you to rebuild, for you to come back smarter and better prepared. Remember, how do humans overcome fear? By relying on their previous experience, aka learning. You've achieved that. You've gone in to fight the dragon, and you may have came out wounded, but now you know better. Now you've gained some modicum of knowledge that's going to make it easier for you going forward. That's not something to be spat on. That's a miraculous thing. Now, you have to ask yourself, what did you learn? What did your courage produce for you to grow from? How can you continue to be strong without encountering these same pitfalls as last time? The goal here isn't to abandon your objective because you've been slain. It's developing a new formula given your new knowledge to become so familiar with the situation that you no longer fear it, like riding a plane. Keep in mind too, doing the same thing and expecting a different outcome is insanity. Fear and courage in tandem stop you from entering that loop. You need both. To not fear anything means that you won't change. It brings you back to the status quo. You have no reason to do anything because you're not motivated. You don't recognize a threat. It means that there is no unknown there for you to traverse. There is no adventure. There is no mystery. You presumably know everything already. And on the other hand, you can't have courage without fear. There would be no opportunity for you to display just what you're made of. This constant battle goes throughout your entire life, and it gives you so many opportunities to develop, to better yourself. You gain memories from which to project into the future. These memories shine a light into the future and allow you to better traverse the terrain. It guides your path forward. It gives you the opportunity to discover things along the way. Displaying courage obviously isn't a guaranteed path to success. Anyone who tells you that is lying. Instead, it's a guaranteed path to development, to facing the challenges of life head on and coming out on top with a badge of honor. Now, you may lose along the way, but maybe, and here's the goal, you'll make losing less likely of a possibility in the future through your efforts. You'll become so strong that the challenges shrink when compared to you. This right here is a self-fulfilling prophecy if I've ever seen one. How do you gain that power? By going toe-to-toe with the things that make you afraid. By facing the things that make you shake in your boots and coming out on top. By showing it that you are above it and that you are not going to succumb to something that's so traumatic that it leaves you paralyzed. That you're going to be human. That you're going to feel these emotions and you won't let them stop you. You are going to persevere. Now, here's an interesting development. What happens with people that have OCD? I believe this phenomenon as well extends to those without it, but the research shows that they have a difficulty trusting their acquired experience. In the past, it was believed that they were just inflexible, but now we understand it's a trust issue. Prior, people thought OCD means that you just are too rigid in your thinking. You're fixated on a certain point and you're using that to navigate yourself. You're using that as a catalyst for all your future decisions, but no, that's not the reason per se. It's not that they're attached to one thing, it's that they don't trust anything else. They don't feel a connection to their past memories because they don't think it's accurate. How do we trust our past? That's the question here, and it applies to you even if you don't have OCD. It's a pitfall that can just come in and take you off of your feet. Now, we remember things because evolutionarily, it was beneficial to not walk into the same snake pit as you did yesterday, to know which berries hurt you and which ones didn't, to know which people were bad to you and which ones cooperated. These things help humans to progress throughout history. A modern example of this may be you've been hurt by a previous relationship. You develop these memories and these cognitions to guide you into the future, so you know what kind of pitfalls to avoid and what things you really do want. And maybe you even played a part in bringing about the dysfunction in that relationship. This is where the not trusting your memories comes into play. Maybe you weren't just a victim. maybe you were a perpetrator as well. And now your experiences are tainted with vices, with malevolence. Or maybe you were a soldier who comes face to face with what you can actually do, with the horrible potential that lies latent within us all. You understand that you are actually someone who can take another person's life, and you just can't look at yourself anymore. How can you trust those memories? Are they really you? You don't want them to be, because it reveals a sinister side of humanity to you. Maybe you displayed courage in your own way, and the consequences were just destructive. Things turned out so badly, not only for yourself, but those around you, that you wish it never happened. That you wish you never partook in the things that occurred in the past, that you wish these memories did not represent you. How can you trust these things? It shakes you to the core, because it calls into question your being and who you are. It's actually easier not to trust that and just discard it. You want to see yourself in the rose-tainted glasses, but there's a different reflection being shown to you now based on things that have happened in the past. To act in a way that suggests what happened was a lie or a falsehood of circumstances is probably the path of least resistance, but it's wrong. It traps you in a loop. Why is that? Well, it's fear again. But this time you're afraid of yourself now. It's no longer an external circumstance, but you looking inwards. You're afraid of what you've done. You're afraid of you now because you understand that there is equal parts good, equal parts bad within you. You may begin to ask yourself, how can I let someone like that go about carrying on their daily routine? How can I trust this person? How can I use these tainted memories to better myself? Is it even possible? The only way out is through it, like in every other example, by using courage and creating an experience. You are never truly bound to something, whether it's a vision of yourself or a projection, until you believe it. It's another self-fulfilling prophecy. You only become that bad when you truly believe you are. So don't believe it. If you can't trust the past because it reveals something to you that you don't want to see, prove it wrong. Do things that prove to yourself that your past is not a lie, but at the same time, it's not a representation of you anymore. Everyone has the same problem. We do have the ability to be bad. That can scare you. At the same time, equal parts good. We have the potential for so much benevolence in this world to make so much positive change. If evidence of being a monster resides within you, then be that angel. If weakness lingers within you and you're afraid of that, be strong. If you are afraid of being vulnerable, well, be vulnerable, but at the same time, don't let it break you if something bad happens. Prove to yourself that there's something beyond that. There is a you that you can envision that you should strive towards. Develop the mastery to shatter fear and project it towards your future. The thing is that right now you may be paralyzed. The quickest way for you to realize that that isn't all you can be is to think about this. Picture yourself 5 years down the road and imagine that that version of you did everything right. They took the risk that you wanted to take. They manifested the energy that you wish you had. They took action where you couldn't. What would that person look like? Would it be someone that you are proud of? Is it someone that you want to be? If the answer is yes, then strive towards that. You don't have to be that exact figure, but move towards it on a progressive level. Every little single increment of increase that you provide to yourself in any such way is going to move you towards this vision. And maybe one day, who knows, you can be that person. It's a beautiful thing. And there's the flip side to that. Right now you're paralyzed, that's the up. There's also a down. Picture someone who 5 years down the road did everything in reverse. Did the worst possible choices, remained sedentary, didn't take the risk that you wanted to take, and thus is living in a cesspool of regret and failed wishes. Here's a wake-up call. You have the power to choose in which direction you want to move. It's a very freeing concept. You can either move towards the upwards level at your own pace, slowly or fast, or you can go downwards. That choice lies within you, and it takes courage for you to act on that. Funny enough, this can actually be a case of a good example of fear. If you're picturing yourself 5 years down the road in a version where you've succumbed to all your vices and life has gone horribly wrong because you didn't exhibit the traits you wanted to, that should motivate you and scare you to your core. it should also get you moving in the other direction because you realize you have the potential to go either way. Don't let it shatter you, but use it as motivation to move away from that. Move towards the reality that you want and bear the brunt of the hurdles along the way. Experience and learning is your weapon. To hone it, you need courage, and fear is your battleground. It's a constant battle that's going to play out throughout your entire life. Make the most of it. You've got a lot of living left to do still. So, that now brings me to the end of our conversation for today. If you enjoyed the content, be sure to leave a review and share. That'll help us grow. And you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at PerryPlatform. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you soon.